Whenever I release a video on YouTube, there's two certainties. One of them is that I'll be called fat or being told that I've put some weight on. And the second is that someone will ask, what camera do you use? What camera do you shoot your videos on? Is it a Canon? Is it a Sony? Is it a DJI? Is it a GoPro? What do you use? Maybe they'll even ask, what kind of drone do I have? So I thought, since I'm finalizing that kit, ready for the Norwegian road trip that I'm heading on in 1 month's time, I'd make a video to explain everything from the action cam that I'm shooting this on, to the bigger stuff, the mirrorless, to the more vloggy type stuff, all the way to the drone, the mounts that I use on the windscreen, as well as little things like this. So we're going to start at the front of the van, where I do all the driving stuff, give you a couple of tips, because there's a couple of things you need to change when you're shooting stuff in the front of your van, and I'll work out my way back and show you the kind of rig that I've built to try and shoot something a little bit cooler in the back of the van. You may also notice I'm missing a cushion. I'll explain more about that in some vlogs I'm planning on releasing next week, because I've made quite a few changes to the van. You may even notice coffee machines and so on and so forth. But this one's not about that. The kit I'm going to be going over in this video is the stuff that I'm planning on taking on my incredible road trip to Norway. I'm heading there at the end of next month to finish off photographs for our Norwegian travel guide book that we've been working on for just over 2 years. You can pre-order that Norway travel guide at the link in the description and get yourself a nice little discount. But we've also just released our Cairngorms and Highlands road trip travel guide. This one is currently available with the Ultimate Scottish Road Trip and the NC 500 in a bundle, where you get one of these, whichever one you want to count, for free using the code SPRING25. So you get all 3 guides for 40 quid. There's only 6 codes available. It was limited to 50. There's 44 at the time of recording this video already being used. So jump over to that link, grab them while you can. Once them 50 are gone, that is them gone. Now the key to success for me is the lowest possible barrier to entry. That means making something as easy as I possibly can without having to mess on too much. And that's why I've got three different mounts placed in different parts of the van, which I will explain what they are after this. But this is the one that's in the front of the van. And the reason I like this is I can just clip this camera there and I'm hands free. First thing that I wanted to explain, and there's so many people do it, it's not wrong, it's just a personal preference, but I don't like having image stabilization turned on when I'm driving. And the reason being is, as long as your mount, this one that you're attached to the windscreen on, is solid and the camera's locked to the movement of the van, image stabilization doesn't really do anything other than it kind of just warps everything around. You go around the corner and everything moves and the camera's trying to smooth your turns out. And for me, I just didn't like the look of it, because I like it locked off. It looks a little bit more professional. Like Top Gear, you didn't see the camera floating around as people were driving. It was locked. It was still. If it was bouncing, the whole thing's bouncing. It's not the camera shaking. There's a difference. However, the trade-off with that is, as soon as you take the camera off here, should I take it off the mount, if it's handheld and I forgot to turn it on, it looks a little bit like this. This is me trying to hand-hold the camera, and I'm just moving a little bit, but however much it's moving, that's me trying to keep it still. You don't realize on such a small, light camera how much stabilization really works. I'll put it back on before you end up vomiting. So as you can see, there's quite a big difference between stabilization on and off, but I'll always try and remember to turn it off whenever I'm driving, because it doesn't need to be on. So that's the shot. When I want to face forward, the beauty of these, which I'm going to go through in just a second, is the fact that I can just do this. I just turn this round and there we'll have it. That is one of the reasons why I use this specific mount and not others. So let's have a look at this mount, let's talk about it, and let's explain the 2 different parts to this mount and why it works perfectly. So these suction mounts are off Amazon. They're called Telesane car mount suction cup with phone holder. They come kind of as this and with an additional sort of mount so you can chuck your phone on it. They're not the cheapest for the size of them. They're $27.99 each, and I've currently got 3 of them in the van. But the reason I like them is, ignore this little section at the top, because this isn't with this mount, I've added that on additionally, is you've got 2 different adjustments. So you've got sort of this way, that way, and then you've also got that. So you can kind of achieve a lot of angles, and because there's 2 balls at the top, there's one here and one there, like ball joint things, you can really customize exactly where you want this thing to point. A lot of suction mounts, it's kind of forward and back, and that's it. And that's not ideal, because then you need to still add this ball joint somewhere, which then by the time you add more, you might as well just buy yourself a decent suction mount. While I've been trying to figure out how I'm gonna shoot these videos while I'm traveling in Norway and trying to make it as easy as possible and not too much of a faff on, I've got stuff to do, so I want kind of to be hands-free if I can. I've broke the van into 3 different sections. So the first one is obviously the front, which is where this mount is. Again, magnet mount, this camera clips straight onto there. Then in the sort of habitation area, this section, the sort of middle of the van, I've got a mount here. Now this one can be turned so I can point it wherever I want. So if I want to get footage of us here talking, I can. Here in this area I can, or even over in the kitchen, I can do it from there. Then the back mount. Now, I'm not set whether this one's gonna stay. I like it, but I don't know, it's a little bit extreme. It's basically this one. So this is on the Action 5 monopod thing. So it's like a selfie stick. It's a really long one. It goes quite far. So I thought if I put one there, I can either suction cup it to the table and suction cup it to there, or what I've done earlier on is I actually managed to stick it on here okay. The only downside is if it's hanging down, the camera on the end, the longer the stick gets, it obviously puts more leverage on the little ball joints on the suction cup and it will slowly fall. But that way I can have it down when I'm sitting talking and it's at face height, and then when I'm standing up, lift it up and it's at sort of this kind of height, or whatever height I want it to be. So that may stay, I'm not sure, but it is still just a normal suction cup. I've just added this extension on here and I can shrink it back down to that. So that's the plan. 3 different sections, 3 different camera angles, and hopefully a little bit easier to work with. Now the other mount that I use is for when I'm out and about and I'm walking around, and it's generally this little thing. It's probably the smallest that I find. It's not perfect, and I'll explain why in just a second, but it works well for what I'm hoping for. I kind of wish this bit didn't stick out so much, but it is what it is. So this is essentially a tiny little tripod. It's also expanding, not a huge amount, but it's enough for a lot of things. And the little tripod legs help when you want to stand it on a flat surface, say in a van or in the house. The issue is this little middle one. If you're on an uneven surface, this kind of gets in the way, and then if you expand it up, it's so light and it's so small that it just tips over. But for what I use it for, it works well. Again, it's got one of the DJI quick release plate things on the top, which is perfect for this camera, which you're currently on. This is the Osmo Pocket 3. Now I was excited for the release of this camera a year and a bit ago, whenever it first come out, because it's got little mist filters and different bits and wide angle lenses, and look at the size of it after what I used to use before. But if I'm honest, it's the gimbal which I hate. Now to turn it on, you just flip the screen, I think you just press record, and the little gimbal comes out, and it doesn't take that long. But what happens with my gimbal a lot of the time is it just never seems to settle straight. So it'll settle off, and then everything's slow, like for a while, is wonky, and it used to be really bad when I shot the video stuff. Plus, you can't lock the gimbal straight, so kind of is where it is. Like if you want to lock it so that you can turn it that way, you can't fully just lock the whole thing. You can change its modes, but it's not locked. I also hate how long it takes to turn off, so it's a few seconds and then the gimbal has to turn and go away, and then you have to put it in because it's not the same shape, and it's nitpicky, but for someone who does vlog type stuff and you got it in and out your pocket all the time, it is a pain. It does me head in, if I'm honest. Don't like it. I won't be using it, but I will be taking it. Hopefully I'll not be using it, because as long as this works and everything's fine with this, there'll be no reason to take this. So this is a mirrorless camera. This is a little Fujifilm X-T5, and the reason I bought this wasn't for video, but it does do okay for video. You've got a little stills and movie switch, so you can switch between the two and it remembers your settings. The downside to this is it's just as painful to carry around, I mean, albeit slightly smaller than what my Sony was. But in terms of ability, the Sony is just, well, in all fairness, for video, if you want the best video stuff you can get a Sony. The autofocus is ridiculous. I have no idea how no other manufacturer can even really get close, even on the highest of end cameras, especially for video. I just didn't enjoy using my Sony, if I'm honest. It was just boring. It was just too good. I like quirks. So this kind of can do that kind of stuff if I needed to, but I'll probably not really use it. If there's some drama and some ridiculous mountains and I want to use a big zoom lens to show that off a little bit, I'll use this because I can. I can't really zoom in on that without ruining the quality, and I definitely can't zoom in on this even though it has got a digital zoom as that one does. A digital zoom is just you might as well crop in. The quality looks crap. This gives you compression when you zoom in and out on this. So this is the other camera. Again, don't really use it as a video camera, although I could. Now the only other mounts that I really keep in the van is this. It's just a MagSafe mount for my phone. I don't really shoot any video on my phone. I got an iPhone 16 Pro, so I could shoot great video out and shoot in log and everything. I just choose not to be honest. I don't like using my phone for anything if I can help it. Really what I'm planning on using this for is we always eat together as a family. It's going to be a bit strange not eating with everyone. So I can suck this to the table, I can sit and eat, FaceTime the kids and Danny when they're all sitting eating together, and we can kind of separately but together eat until my son or my daughter makes too much noise, and then I'll hang up and just tell them I've got no signal. Because I cannot bear people that eat like pigs. Anyhow, drones. Now, since 2012, I've had drones. I've had numerous different types of drones. I've had bigger stuff, I've had smaller stuff, I've had FPV drones. This one is the one I currently use. It's a tool. I'm not precious about any of my kit, if I'm honest. I am with my Leica cameras and my Mamiya film camera, but in terms of drone and this kind of stuff, it's there to be used. So this one that I currently use is the DJI Mavic Mini Pro 3 or Mini Pro 3. I've had it a couple of years now and it's great. It's tiny. I mean, again, while it's folded up, it's about the same size as a phone. Maybe it's a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit wider. Once you open it all up, it extends out a little bit more, but it's still tiny. And you'd be extremely surprised at what comes out of this. It's insane. If I go back to the first drones that I ever had in comparison to this, they're not even the same. So any of the drones, especially the DJI ones, and I can only comment on DJI because I've never had another brand, are fine. Pick whichever one suits your price point. What I will say is, for me, a non-negotiable is this. I've tried the controllers without a screen and they're horrific. Having to get a phone out, then you need an app update or something like that, or you got to plug it in and clip it in. It's just too much for me, and that might be sound for you. And these are, in all fairness, a little bit expensive for what they are, but they make such a difference. I just turn this on, and fly about. That's that. Now I got this as part of the Fly More combo. So I got this stupid little satchel bag, which I never ever keep it in normally. I just leave it in the van, and 3 spare batteries plus the charger for it, with this and that. Fantastic bit of kit. It weighs 249 grams with a battery in. So all of this combined only weighs 249 grams, as it says on the battery, if you can see it. Now what that means, and I don't know if this is still true, I'm not 100% sure, but at the time when I got this, the whole point in this, and the Air I believe, is to be under a specific weight and size which allows anyone to take these on holiday, where certain drones you can't take them places, certain countries and stuff. So check that still. I'm not saying that's still the case, or whether even that's 100% right. I never really take this on holiday with us. I'll take it to Norway and but I'm not taking this to like Spain or when we go away anywhere else. So yeah, check that. One thing I will give though is a bit of a tip. I am precious about flying this. I'll chuck it anywhere. I've crashed it and everything else. It's fine. It's much more durable than you think. What I am cautious about is where I fly it and when. Now, one of the things I noticed pretty quickly when you head up into the middle of nowhere in Scotland is because it's the middle of nowhere, Scotland, that's where a lot of the RAF jets and everything will train. So when you're up in, say, the northwest corner of Scotland, up near Cape Wrath, near Ullapool, in them beautiful valleys, you got some incredible scenery, you will see jets tearing over your head at a relatively low altitude. Now, I know these are meant to be limited at a specific height. I think it's about 100, 150 meters, whatever it is. The issue you've got is you can just turn it off. Now, I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. If you want to do that, that's entirely up to yourself. But what I will say is be very careful if you're going to mess on with things like that, where you do it, because you don't want to be, one, causing accidents and potentially people dying, and two, it's just irresponsible at the end of the day. One thing I try and look at with this, and I've done it for a long time, is no matter how good the scenery is that you think you're going to get and how good the video is you think you're going to get, someone's already done it better anyway. At the end of the day, it's just a cinematic-ish drone shot, and to be fair, there's an argument to be said that really they're not that cinematic anymore because there's so much drone footage out there that is there much point. I mean, it helps show the scale of things, but you didn't always need to use it. So if there's a risk, there's helicopters flying around, there's jets flying around, just keep it in your bag, watch it with your eyes. You didn't need to get your drone out. And ultimately, that is all I'm going to take with this. Take a few spare SD cards in case I get any issues with corruption or anything like that. But that's that. I'm not going to overcomplicate things too much. Generally, with these sort of cameras, you just press record and press record again to stop it. It's easy. They're okay in low light. I'm not going to be shooting out in the dark. I'm not shooting concerts or anything like that. And they work for me. But camera gear is very much like a layout of a camper van. It's very subjective and it depends what your use case is. I started with big Sony stuff, big mirrorless stuff, beautiful lenses, Rode VideoMic Pro cameras, which microphones which were bigger than this, just plonked on top. And I've gradually downsized to the most basic cameras, really, which is this little Action 5 Pro that I'm shooting this on. So yeah, hopefully it helps. If you've got any questions about any of the kit that I use, any questions about anything else along the lines of the video stuff, let us know in the comments and I'll try and respond to as many of them as I can. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week when I shoot 3 or 4 different videos up in beautiful Scotland in hopefully weather as nice as this.